The Cursed Ring. It all began with a simple wooden box, resting on the dusty shelves of a forgotten antique shop. The shop itself was unremarkable, tucked into a shadowed alleyway that only the curious or the lost seemed to stumble upon. Its dim lighting and the scent of old varnish gave it an air of mystery, but it was the ring inside that box that would change everything. I wasn't even looking for anything in particular when I walked in that day. I was restless, wandering the city, searching for something to distract me from the monotony of my life. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to see through to your soul, didn't say much. He simply watched as I browsed the cluttered aisles. Then I saw it. The box was intricately carved, its lid adorned with symbols I didn't recognize but felt inexplicably drawn to. When I opened it, the ring inside took my breath away. It was silver with an ornate band that twisted into shapes resembling thorny vines. At its center sat a deep crimson gemstone, its surface shimmering as if it were alive. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The shopkeeper's expression darkened. "That ring is not for sale. But it's here in your shop," I countered. He sighed, his shoulders slumping as though the weight of the world pressed upon him. "Some items are meant to be kept away from the world. That ring. It's cursed. Leave it be." A sensible person might have listened. But something about the ring called to me, its allure too strong to resist. I slipped a few bills onto the counter, more than enough to cover any price he could have named, and left with the box before he could protest further. That night I couldn't stop thinking about the ring. Its weight felt solid and comforting in my palm, and the crimson gemstone seemed to pulse faintly in the moonlight streaming through my window. I slid it onto my finger, and an icy sensation shot through me, as though the ring were binding itself to my very soul. At first nothing happened. Days passed and life continued as usual. But then the dreams began. They were vivid and horrifying, filled with faceless figures whispering in a language I couldn't understand. The whispers grew louder, turning into screams as shadowy hands reached for me, dragging me into darkness. I woke up every night drenched in sweat, the echoes of those screams ringing in my ears. The strange occurrences started small. A picture frame fell off the wall with no explanation. Lights flickered even though the wiring in my apartment was fine. Then my cat Luna started behaving oddly. She would hiss at nothing, her fur bristling as she stared at empty corners. One morning I found her cowering under the bed, her eyes wide with fear. It wasn't until I began to notice the deaths that I realized the true nature of the curse. The first was a coworker, Kevin. He had been teasing me about the ring, joking that it looked like something out of a horror movie. "Maybe it's cursed," he said with a laugh. I laughed too, but there was an unease growing in my chest. 2 days later, Kevin was dead. A freak accident, they said. He had fallen down the stairs at home, breaking his neck. But the whispers returned that night, louder and more insistent, and I knew it wasn't an accident. The ring was to blame. I tried to take it off, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as though the ring had fused to my skin, its vines tightening whenever I tried to remove it. Desperate, I even considered cutting off my finger, but the whispers warned against it. "You are ours now," they seemed to say. More deaths followed. A neighbor who had borrowed a tool from me was struck by lightning on a clear day. A barista who admired the ring collapsed from a sudden heart attack. Each time, the whispers grew louder, their tone shifting from seductive to menacing. I became a prisoner in my own life, afraid to interact with anyone, terrified that the curse would claim them next. My friends stopped calling and my family grew distant, their concern turning to frustration as I withdrew further into isolation. Then I began to see her. She appeared first in the corner of my bedroom, a faint silhouette against the darkness. Her presence was chilling, her form barely distinguishable except for her glowing eyes and the faint shimmer of a ring on her finger, a ring identical to mine. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Her answer came not in words but in a flood of images that invaded my mind. I saw a young woman, centuries ago, accused of witchcraft by her village. They had burned her at the stake, her cries drowned by the roar of flames. Before her death, she cursed them all, binding her soul to the ring she wore. The curse, she showed me, was her vengeance. Every wearer of the ring was doomed to suffer as she had, to watch those around them fall victim to her wrath until their own life was claimed. "Please," I begged her, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't mean to take it. I didn't know." Her eyes burned brighter, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of pity. But the whispers returned, louder and angrier than ever, drowning out my pleas. I knew then that there was no escape. The deaths continued, each more horrific than the last. A man was decapitated in a freak elevator malfunction. A child was crushed under a toppled bookshelf. Each life taken fed the curse, the whispers turning into a deafening roar that consumed my every waking moment. And then the final act began. One night, I woke to find the woman standing at the foot of my bed, her form more solid than ever before. The air was suffocating, the scent of burning flesh filling the room. She extended her hand, and I saw that her ring was gone. "You," she rasped, her voice echoing with centuries of pain. "It is your turn." I screamed as the ring tightened on my finger, the vines digging into my flesh. The crimson gemstone glowed brighter, its light blinding and searing. My body felt like it was being torn apart, my soul ripped from my chest and bound to the ring. When I woke, I was no longer in my room. I was standing in the antique shop, the cursed ring resting in its box on the counter. The shopkeeper looked up, his weary eyes meeting mine. "I warned you," he said softly. I tried to speak, but no words came. My reflection in the glass case beneath me showed my true form, translucent, bound to the ring as the woman had been before me. And now I wait, trapped in the cursed cycle, watching as the next unsuspecting soul walks into the shop, drawn to the ring's sinister beauty. The whispers have become my voice, and I know that soon the curse will claim another. It always does.